Well, we can go ahead and start if you want, and if someone notices someone trying to get in, they'll just have to wave me down. And
Okay. And just for those, so we're gonna start the meeting, but just for those in the audience that are not in the room here, we do have Robin Sonstegard here as well. She's just not letting me join. Until I can hear her, but you won't be able to see her.
should turn your mic on.
Your mic. Okay. All right, so start out the working session. We'll start with the citizens forum. I don't believe we have any. Anybody for that, Jeff?
No.
No, okay. Then on to reports from board committees. I don't know, did the finance committee meet or no buildings and grounds? We don't have any listed here, so. Policy committee didn't, so Forest didn't. Yeah, maybe.
No, I don't think we had any. Did we?
No,
No, I don't think we did. We did some email exchanges and
special meeting.
we had a special board meeting. Otherwise, no, there's no committees.
Okay.
No.
Then we have the buildings and grounds this time
Yes.
around, or was that last time around? I forget.
We had a special one on, it was a personnel issue.
Okay, that was the only thing.
The only thing on the
Yes,
agenda.
I believe
Okay.
so.
Okay,
Yep, that's the only thing that was discussed.
So we can move on to the superintendent elementary principal report, Jeff Nelson.
Okay, I only have 2 items under my name, but it's like 6 pages long, so I apologize. First up is update on planning for the new school year.
Jeff, looks like Tim Lyons.
Okay. So as I was saying, this Thursday, July 30th is when we'll know from the governor exactly what will transpire for the beginning of the school year. It's been kind of a challenge to seriously plan for 3 possibilities. In my opinion, with the metrics within our state, I would highly doubt that this year would be anything with in-person normal. I think at best, if we can do a hybrid model with kids in the building as much as possible, I'm sure we're going to be held to strict. Oh, there, Robin's finally there. We'll probably be held for strict social distancing, face mask, all that stuff. Just to ensure that everyone can be here safely and try to minimize the risk as much as possible. So my goal, or what I'm hoping for, is at the very least on Thursday, the governor will say districts have the ability to bring kids in as much as possible. But again, we'll have to put guidelines in place and restrictions and safety measures to do so. So as we're moving forward, some things, just some quick updates. I sent out a supplemental to everyone for board information, and I had quite a lengthy write-up summary on that planning update. Here's just a few highlights I'll share tonight and answer any questions. Couple things, we are looking at additional Chromebooks for 1-to-1 for high school students would be our first target with the new Chromebooks. Mobile Chromebooks up in the high school would then go down to the elementary. And our goal is to ensure that if we have to go to distance learning, everyone's set up with the 1-to-1. My hope is if we can have the kids in right away at the beginning of the year, that'd be a good time for teachers anticipating possible distance learning to start off the year using Google Sites and Google Classroom within the classrooms, getting the kids geared up on as much instruction that they can do that would also fall into remote learning. And also taking opportunities to outreach with parents so that they kind of know what the process is and how to get on to different things at home if we end up at that level at some point. So we're estimating it's right around $50,000 for the Chromebooks. We're looking at our CARES money, which is about $73,000. But there's other things too that we're looking at for that CARES money. So it's kind of limited funding. We may look at other funding sources as well. But I think that should be a priority, is getting those Chromebooks. We started to make other plans on strict social distancing. Like I said, we're prioritizing for sure K through 8, I feel, in my opinion, those K-8 students, getting them in the school building 5 days a week for in-person learning. If it gets pushed to come to shove, for sure the elementary students, I think it'd be very hard for families to cope with a rotation schedule with kids being home 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and then at school 2 days a week or 3 days a week. I think it'd be very disruptive at home and for parents that need to work. So for sure, those elementary age students, I think we want to prioritize doing all we can to make sure that they can be in the school building safely throughout the week. So we're looking at room sizes and class sizes, as well as looking at possibly adding some teachers, adding sections, so that we can meet the strict hybrid model that we have to ensure the 6-foot distancing as much as possible. So we have to look at classroom sizes and the number of students that allow us to put kids at desk and keep them with that 6-foot safety zone around them. Seth has been working with Brian Bolter from BLB Consulting, and he's the guy that does a lot of our work with our facilities planning, our long-term facilities planning. So he's got a model, and we've looked at, so he's come up with kind of what the maximum capacity would be for some of our classrooms to ensure that we can have maximum number of students in there, allow enough room for passing on the outside of the desk. And I believe it's like an 8-foot perimeter towards the front of the classroom for the teachers. So the elementary average, and I don't have all of the list in front of me, but the average classroom in the elementary 16 is kind of the maximum for the students. And that's not a sketched in stone. There is some ways to modify the rooms. We might have to move some bookshelves, move the teacher desk, that type of thing. But 16 students in an elementary classroom on average, I think is very doable. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at all the rooms. One scenario I'm looking at, we have kindergarten class of 30, what is it? Of 37 students. So one way of resolving that issue, for example, would be move one of the kindergarten or one of the first grade classrooms into Mrs. Stanton's empty kindergarten class with 21 students, which is reasonable. And then the other first grade classroom would be at 16. So that's one way of getting the setup so we can have the students here. Second grade class, we could move the second grade group. There's 41 students. We're looking at 25 students would go into Mrs. Nordine's music classroom, which actually has a capacity of 28. And then the remaining 16 students would be in the regular classroom. So those are just a couple examples of what we're looking at as far as just our physical space and class sizes. Also looking at adding personnel, like I said. For example, it would be nice, I would prefer that second grade group have 3 sections with 14 students in each class. I think that's a preferred way of handling that larger group rather than having 25 of them in a larger room. And we're looking at the 5th grade also is extending Mrs. O'Connell. We're going to be finalizing her contract tonight for that halftime position that we started last year within this group was in 4th grade to meet some specific academic needs. So I'm looking at actually extending that and making it a full-time position, and I'll send out the hard dollars and cents on what it's going to cost. Roughly, we're looking at a range of somewhere between 70,000 and 79,000 for just those 2 positions. And that's cost above what we've budgeted. We've budgeted for about 29,000 already for that halftime position. So it's an additional 19,000 on top of that. We also have the CARES Act money. The district is going to get about $73,000 that we could use for COVID related expenses. And that might, the additional personnel might be one way to spend that money. But that would take care of all of that extra funding. And we still have sanitizing chemicals and cleaning and additional fuel costs for busing and face masks and shields. So there's a lot more additional expenses on top of that that we need to keep in mind as well. I don't think we're going to get through this school year without deficit spending, quite honestly, if we want to have the kids here. I guess the next thing I have that's related is, and I've talked to John Weibel, I think he's the chair of the county commissioners. There is a little over $500,000 of federal CARES Act money that is going to each county, or well, that's what Lake of the Woods has been allocated. And they can use that for COVID related expenses. They can also transfer those funds to cities or towns or schools within that county if they can't spend it all on their own needs. So I reached out to Commissioner Weibel and just asked him to keep us in mind, and that I would be putting together a letter with a detailed list of these are the COVID related expenses that we don't have budgeted, and hopefully there's some funding that they might be able to help us out with. So we'll be working with the county commissioners on that. Another issue is busing. It's going to be a huge challenge for us, especially with the strict distancing requirements, and that also goes into effect into transportation vehicles as well. Adding drivers, as we all know, is probably not a viable option at this time. So we're looking at splitting the current routes into smaller routes and staggering arrival and dismissal times. For example, it might take Steve Johnson 3 trips to town to pick up all the kids from town to get them here with the limited numbers that we can have in there. So we're gonna have to be creative with the start and end of the day. We can't start our routes any earlier. So we're gonna have to dip into our instructional day a little bit. Officially, we might have to change some of the start and end times of classes. I think there's lots of support and tutoring and mentoring that could happen at the beginning of the day and the end of the day when we have kind of a scattering of different kids in and out of the building. We can identify kids that might need some extra math work and stuff and use some of that as catch up from last year and getting caught up for this year type thing. So I think we can be creative. So it's useful time for those kids, but we're gonna have to adjust that as well. Face coverings is gonna be an issue. unfortunately, it's political with some people. The school district, we have to go by the state guidance. So we will be purchasing a combination of reusable and the cloth washable, those, and then also disposable face mask for all students and staff. We're looking at probably providing everyone with at least 2 reusable face masks to start off the year. And then we'll have a supply of disposable ones because we know that they will get lost. That's bound to happen. But this district is really, we're obligated to provide those. And, you know, we have to have them available.
They'd still be able to wear their own. if
They can bring their own, and that's one of my bullet points here. We're also looking at the face shields for all classroom teachers that want to use it as an alternative, especially the younger grades. That facial expression is very important for students. To figure out if they're messing around and getting the teacher mad or not and that type of thing. But there's lots of benefits with the face, with having the face shield. It's not perfect. Face masks aren't perfect. But I think that's the way to go with that. We're also going to have some students that can't tolerate the face coverings. And that might be a viable option for some of those students. So we'll be purchasing those. And the guidelines are quite lengthy, but I will share that with everyone. But we are allowed to have students K through 8 wear the face shields if they're deemed problematic for the students. So we'll have both options available for everyone. And again, parents and staff can purchase their own if they so choose. As long as they fit kind of the guidelines, it has to cover the nose, cover the mouth. There's more specific things with the shield as far as what it covers. And then there's always going to be certain exemptions for some children, whether it's special needs or other various health issues. Kids ages under 5 are not required. My understanding is they're not required to wear that. We can encourage it, but it's not a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. It's not really highly recommended for those younger kids because they can't handle it appropriately and it probably causes more problems than it prevents. So we're just gonna have to be patient with everyone and get everyone that is able to put face covering on and work with those that are struggling to comply with that. Next week, after Thursday, we'll find out what's actually going to happen. So next week, we'll start with weekly meetings with my cabinet and classroom staff. I'm sure Mary's on with us. I'm sure she's going to want to start meeting with some of the high school staff and stuff like that. So next week, we'll start putting in a plan for how we're going to communicate with staff and students and everyone and get the ball rolling. We'll also be working on reaching out to families for their input and feedback on the upcoming school year. I think for us in our district, our outreach will primarily be done through in-person phone calls. We will email out surveys to any families who can't communicate or can't reach by phone. We can put things online, but my experience is we maybe get 40% response at best for those types of things. So we want to personally get a hold of every family and go through a series of questions, such as, are they planning to send their child? Do they anticipate their child struggling with having any face covering? Do they need a computer? Can they transport their child to school, or do they want the buses to come and pick them up? Those types of things. And I think just doing it by phone is the best way. So we'll probably bring in some extra staff for a few days to make those phone calls. So I'm looking forward to having some definitive direction for the upcoming school year. We'll have a lot to do, lots of things to get done in 4 short weeks, but I think everything will fall into place one way or another. The other thing I have on my update Well, I should say, any questions or concerns on what I just covered?
Jeff, on getting back to that thing with the county having some COVID money there, no doubt you've got a million things going on and things are changing daily, I'm assuming. Should we maybe have a committee to stay on top of that, or get some folks that would be able to help you with that, to stay on top of that? 'Cause that sounds like that's a pretty important thing if we've got some money available out there to help us through this.
Yeah, that might be helpful. I think the first thing we need to do is get a complete list of exactly what things we're in need of and those costs. And I plan on calling all the commissioners and we'll formulate a letter. I'm not sure what a committee would do unless people wanted to contact their commissioners and encourage them. I think once they get the list, then we might want to do some follow-up and discussions with them and see if they have any concerns and stuff. I have no idea, and I'm sure they don't right now know even what their own expenses are, you know, so they're gonna have to take care of their stuff first. And I'm sure there might be some needs with the city, whether it's Williams or Badet, that they have to keep in mind as well, you know, so I feel pretty confident they'll work with us, and we just need to get the information to them and let them know that these are our needs.
Are we getting any good input from MSBA at all on what's to look forward to, or have they been a resource at all?
Oh yeah, I almost get overwhelmed with emails and alerts from MSBA and MASA and MREA and MDE and ABC and XYZ, and so there's lots of information. A lot of it's duplicated, but no, I'm glad we're part of MSBA. I'm glad we're part of MREA. There's just a lot of information and a lot of unknowns, and there's lots of speculation, and you know, but no, those groups are very helpful. MSBA already has a session. You might have gotten the email. I think that's open for board members too. If you're not getting the MSBA alerts on those, let me know. But I think they've already scheduled, yes. So those are already scheduled before the governor's even made the announcement. And usually what they do, if you haven't sat in any of those, they have their lawyer there and a couple other experienced people, and they kind of go through these executive orders and stuff like that and kind of start the conversation on this is what we feel you need to get done. This is what you must have in place and stuff like that. So watch for those emails. If you're not getting them, let me know, because board members are certainly invited and welcome to attend those. Those are Zoom. So Mr. Burcham, you shouldn't have any problems with that now. You're an old pro at it.
I'm on it.
Any other questions or concerns?
Yeah, I'm going to chime in. Thanks for the optimism. I appreciate that and the effort. Two comments. One, can we put a little stress on the parents about getting their kids to school on their own, understanding that they may get a better educational experience if we don't have these sort of staggered bus arrival times, seeing what kind of commitment we can get out of the local community, and that I would like to believe that we could make that happen. And secondly, is there much latitude being given by the state for a Lake of the Woods specific COVID program, or are you feeling like you're pretty much just following their guidelines?
I think I'm not sure what to guess on Thursday. There might be an announcement that certain schools fitting within certain metrics as far as, and I'm not sure what that would be, percentage of student, or, you know, based on the number of new COVID cases, for example. Those not meeting those metrics would be doing distance learning. If there's a hotspot within a state or a school district community like that, they might say you have to do distance learning until such a time where those metrics return to a better rate.
More specifically, I guess, is I like the idea that you're sort of prioritizing the elementary part of it, because I think that that is important. And can we do stuff to make sure that our elementary kids are there 5 days a week? Perhaps it's sacrificing some of the in-school time for our high school kids. And is there been a discussion with staff as how they would like to see it handled, understanding ages of staff, exposure to their kids, you know, that kind of a thing, where they might be willing to offer up some sort of a different format than maybe we're getting out of a Fridley or a more populated area, you know, take our rural nature to advantage, for instance.
Those conversations are still needing to take place with staff. As far as latitude with our programming, we have the latitude on if we want to prioritize having certain kids present, whether it's the elementary, but I'm sure it's going to be as long as we meet their guidelines and requirements to do so safely, you know, and that's where that 6 foot of social distancing and reducing the capacity of your buses by 50% and those types of things. It's very well laid. It's laid out, very specific, what we need to have, what's required. And we've talked about having like plastic dividers on tables in classrooms. And way I interpret it, one of the requirements is the 6 foot separation. And the divider falls under what they say is recommendations. So when I look at that, it tells me that we have to have them separated by 6 feet minimum. And if we want to add additional plastic dividers between them, we can do so. So there's just not a lot of, you can do it this way or that way. It's pretty much, you have to do it this way. And if you want to add additional measures of safety, these are some things that you could add. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, sufficient for the moment. Like you say, let's get to Thursday, I guess, and see what happens.
Yep. Any other questions? The last thing I have on my list that I can think of is I sent out in that supplemental information a little bit of some added language to the athletic employment agreement. And that's in red line. And that's up for approval, the template. And that this language, Mr. Hazelton included some information in his packet regarding an update from the State High School League and recommending coaches' pay if seasons are canceled or shortened. I also got some MOU language from some other districts that they're using with their certified staff that have coaching part of their contract. So that language is there as far as how we would do pro rata compensation. Yeah, if there's any questions on that. The red line information that I added was just a little more detail so they understand if it's canceled at the beginning of the season, they would qualify for that 25% of their salary as long as they follow through on some of the expectations for continuing some contact and support to their athletes and communicating with parents and such as that. We'll have to do an MOU. I'll be working with the Education Minnesota for the co-curriculars that are still underneath the teacher's contract. So that's still out there as well. But since all our athletic coaches are not part of that contract, I want to address it so when we sign new contracts this fall, we have it covered. And I'm sure Chad will include more language and more specifics in the coach's handbook that relate to this. And I think that's all I have for my superintendent's report. Unless there's any questions on the coaching contract language?
I did have a
Okay.
quick question just on one of the items of business for the agenda.
Okay,
The photography contract.
yep.
And in there, they say they're not doing sports photos. And do you have an idea?
To do sports photos.
Yeah,
Um,
if it's necessary.
If it's necessary, what we will do is, we have local people.
Okay.
We have a couple, I don't know if you call them vendors or people that we could put that out there and have that done locally
Okay.
as an alternative.
Since this company did provide the sports photos.
Yeah. But there was quite a few teams that did additional photos on their own, and I know they use them. We have some very talented local people that we certainly can. And after this year, I believe next year that we'll open it up for bids type thing. Yep.
Okay.
I think that's what we had in the contract. I think that's,
All right. Anybody else? Anything else? If not, we'll move on to Crystal with the business office, the monthly budget report.
oh, I'm gonna admit her, she fell out of there somehow. Hi, Crystal.
Hello, my internet keeps kicking me out.
No. We're on you for the working session. Anything, I know we canceled the finance committee. Do you have anything for monthly budget report?
I guess not right now, I don't. But next week I'll send it out to everyone if that works after we have our meeting.
And you're working on the end of the year closeout type stuff, correct?
Correct. We're gonna hopefully start working on year-end journal entries and all of that the beginning of next week and just have an idea of where we're sitting at year end. We for sure obviously won't be able to do the levy spread until the audit comes in September. And they have actually reached out already as far as getting some of the preliminary stuff to them to kind of start the process already, so. And that'll be the week of, I think it's like around September 24th.
Okay. And then on, was it August 8th, we meet with Ellers on possible refinancing of,
Yes. Because there's a possibility, it looked like from what the email that they sent us, that we could save like, I believe it was what, 1.8 million or something if we could refinance it. So we're gonna meet with them. Is that the day it was, the 8th?
I just made up that date. I know it's not next week, it's the following week.
Yeah, so yeah,
mean,
we're gonna meet with them as far as doing that. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And that was on the bond.
Correct.
Refinance.
The
Yeah.
2011 beyond.
Okay.
That's really all I have for right now.
Thanks, Crystal.
Then we'll see how much money we're gonna spend in the fall in this upcoming year.
Well, hopefully you were kicked out and didn't hear what I was talking about earlier.
Oh, great.
I gotta keep them in mind. All right. Okay, we'll move on to activities director, Chad Hazelton.
Miss,
Not,
he's not here. But he has a write-up, and I believe it went out in the board packet. And he just kind of went through more detail on the State High School League waiting on the governor to make the announcement. And that there's 2 task force working with State High School League on recommendations. And they'll be meeting on August 6th. So he'll have more information on sports and activities. And then he mentions the coaches' pay and getting that in place in case seasons are canceled or shortened. Also in the handbook, in the board packet, in the working session, is a copy of the coach's handbook that has been updated and formatted. And at this point, he says we need to add a section that addresses distance learning if we decide to allow participation for out of the classroom. So that might have to be revised as well. And then he's also has information on a captain's handbook. And what I'll quote him, he says, the captain's handbook is something that I put together based on a model from Indiana. Coaches choose captains and say, congratulations, you are a captain, now go lead. We don't give them any training or real guidance. The handbook is the first step in a larger process of captain's education that I would like to get developed. So I think that's a good thing that he's bringing that here, and I think it's very fitting and appropriate. And then coaches vacancy for the fall, we have cross country and 8th grade volleyball. Winter, we have hockey and assistance boys basketball. And that's pretty much the AD report.
And those captains and coaches handbooks, are those something that the board would approve?
Yep. Hopefully by the September board meeting, possibly the August one, if we have everything updated. September is kind of my goal for this year to have handbooks updated and approved. We have a new high school principal, so we might want to give her a break to get the handbook updated. It might be, I know Brian, before he left, had worked on it, but I think it's only fair that we let Mary have a chance to take a look at it and provide her expertise and guidance on it. And so September tentatively is when we'll try to have as many of those handbooks, employee handbook stuff all updated for board approval. That's my goal.
Anything else on that?
Not from the activities director.
All right, we'll move on to buildings and grounds instead.
Jeff, can you refresh me? I think I had 3 things on the working session. I left it on my desk for the updates. I think it's gym floor heating system.
Yep. You had gym floor update, pool repairs and opening, heating system update.
Okay. All right. So an update on the gym floor that is complete. I pulled all the tape down today. It is open for people to go in there. It's still too early to put the dividing wall out or the bleachers out, but it is open for play for as soon as they decide that they need practice. And next one is the heating system. That was for the glycol lines. That project has been a 2-year project to put in isolation valves and fix leaks that they've had in the system. They finished that up 2 weeks ago. That is done, and we are ready for this fall to just up and go finally without any problems with that. And then the last one is the pools. All the pools are up and going. We had to drain about 10,000 gallons out of the main pool to repair the wall, where we had a chunk of plaster blow out, but that's repaired. We got it up and we got everything running before the day before we were supposed to open. The kiddie pool, we had to drain completely and redo the floor in it, all the plaster work, and that is up and going and everything is right on schedule. So I know it's not a lot of updates, but that's what I got. Any questions?
Sounds like some projects that need to be done.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And I'm glad they're done.
Hey Seth, I know we talked about it one time, that retention pond. Did you ever figure out, can we hold that, manage that water in there? I was by it the other day and it looked really good. But earlier in the year, it was almost dry. Did you ever figure out anything on that?
We can do a certain point. It's not a line pond or anything. So depending on how much rain we get, and if it gets down to below the level of where we have to dump anything out, then, you know, it's what Mother Nature does. If it's a dry year, it is going to go a little bit lower. Does that help? Awesome. Yeah, with the recent rains we've had, that's helped out a lot to bring that level up.
And like I mentioned earlier, you know, drawing it down is environmentally is a wonderful thing. It creates more growth, that vegetation that's sitting there, you know, under too much water. That's not a bad thing. So in conservation minded, you did a great job. Whether you had any choice on it or not.
We did. I took a walk down there about 3 weeks ago, and with it being lower, all them cattails popped up that weren't there in the years previous. I mean, that works great for soil retention right there.
Yep. Yeah, that's a classic when we have these pools and things out on the state property. If we want to enhance vegetation or just get that, they just draw things down, and it's wonders what a little more sunlight into those areas, what the seed bank will do. So yeah, no, it looks good.
All right, thank you. Any other
Yes.
questions or concerns?
Seth, this is Corinne.
Yeah,
Any update on those sinkholes in the parking lot and getting that fixed?
what was that, Jeff? I didn't hear Corinne.
She's asking about the sinkholes out in the parking lot, the man covers and stuff.
So we got Christian Olson. I talked to him. As soon as he gets time, he's going to come out and look and bid those out. My goal is to have them done before school year, so it does not become an impedance when people need to come in and use the parking lot.
Sounds good.
That would be good.
Anything else?
Doesn't sound like it. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to community ed and transportation. Brent?
Brent can't be here tonight. He's out on the baseball field right now coaching. He had to fill in for a coach, so he gave me a few short notes. I won't go into great detail because I don't want to talk about something I'm not really sure of. So what he gave to me is basically youth baseball and softball are up and running. And we'll have a report on how many kids are showing up next month. And that's with certain requirements from the state on what we can and cannot do. We also had Taekwondo going on tonight in the Commons. So high school summer volleyball and basketball are also getting up and started. I believe it's probably this week or next week, I think he said, that will start. And Brent is working on setting up open gym for 2 days per week. It sounds like we have a couple of volunteers and they're hoping to have something up and running next week. And the weight room is now open as well. So that's the community ed report. Any questions on any of those?
Is that open gym summertime only, or would that extend into the school? school year?
As long as we have volunteers. And he'll have all the details. I'm sure we'll be capped on the number of people that can actually be there at one time. We'll have to have policies on screening and health checks, and
And when did you say that was hoping to start?
hopefully next week.
And that sounds like a nice thing for kids, especially
Yeah.
in the school year, even to be able to do that.
Yeah. So my only concern is if we get too many in there at one time, so I don't know if they have some kind of sign up or some way of, I don't know if it's 2 hours, split it up by groups, so we can not exceed our capacity. And well, he knows better than I do, and Chad does too, as far as the athletic requirements for social distancing are a little bit different than within the school building. So and if it's outside and stuff like that, so it's pretty detailed, and I count on them to kind of make sure that they have things in place for that. Same thing with like the pool, open swim has been going on. It's a little bit different guidelines with that. So, but it was nice seeing kids in the commons today and hearing young voices. So, and it was only like 4 of them, but they were making up for it. So, but it was nice. And I hope this Thursday can start planning on having more of them in the building. And if you want me to go on to the transportation. So Brent said, DOT bus inspections are coming up on Wednesday. So the staff is working hard to get all the buses ready for inspection. And Brent said he's even smoking ribs. So I'm not sure what he meant by that. I don't know if the inspector can be fed beforehand to get him in a good mood, or her in a good mood. I'm not sure, but that's something that they do when the DOT inspector comes. So they try to provide food. So things are shaping up. That's all I have from Mr. Cole.
Next, food service. Steve?
Cece, you're up. Can you hear us?
I could, but I couldn't, it's really hard to understand Corinne. But can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready then. Jackie and I, throughout the summer, on Tuesdays, there is a webinar that the Food and Nutrition Service does. And they're on every Tuesday, and they're very good. We've learned a lot. In one of the webinars a couple weeks ago, they mentioned, when our students come to the lunch line or breakfast line, they punch their numbers in on a keypad. And that was one of the things that we were trying to figure out, and other schools are trying to figure out how we can do where they don't have to touch the pad. Well, we contacted our Region 1, and they actually have what they call scanning keypads. You can use them as regular keypads too, but they will scan. So we will be able to scan the students' numbers, or they can scan it themselves. We will have cards for them. And one of the things that we kind of discussed was the kids losing their cards in elementary. So we were thinking of just having the teachers give us the cards. However, whatever we decide how to do, but anyway, we are going to go to a scanning keypad for our students in the breakfast and lunch line. And these weekly seminars or webinars are going to continue now they're going to continue throughout the year, but there's a lot of really good information on it. So we just wanted to let you know that we're going to a touchless keypad. Is there any questions?
Sounds good.
Is there funding through food service to purchase that equipment, or does that come out of the general fund?
Crystal seems to think we did order 2, and so that should be covered by by our funds.
And that could be submitted on that list.
Yeah.
They were about 750 for two of them.
Crystal can speak up too, but I know last year she started off when we had any COVID related type expenses, she coded a little bit differently, you know,
Right,
so
yeah.
she's got a good handle on what the pandemic is costing the district. So that's a good thing.
And these keypads can be used, our keypads were kind of at the end of their timeline anyway, so we figured we would have to be replacing them within a year or two anyway. So these will be able to be used after too. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Cece.
I didn't ask her to present anything. I don't know if Mary wants to say anything or not.
Sure, I just appreciate being invited so I can get connected and see faces. And I actually met with the leadership team here and started getting a lot of questions from teachers, which was good because I'm sure the teachers, they are going to have very similar questions. So I'm quite anxious for Thursday to roll around so we can, you know, connect with teachers and start to answer some of those questions. And when you talk about the social distancing, you know, last time I was in the building as I was showing my husband around, quite frankly, that's what I was looking at. How are we gonna, what are the walkways gonna be? How are the paths gonna be? So I think it's something that Jeff and I are probably thinking of constantly, the maneuvering, because that'll probably be the most difficult once we figure out the square footage of kids in a room. But very anxious to get up there and get grounded on Monday.
Good, I'm anxious to get you up here too.
Thanks, Mary.
You bet.
Anything else for the working session?
Wondering if we want to back to a little bit about getting the parents involved in, and wondering if Woody in the newspaper might want to put something in there as far as that we're requesting or getting no doubt, Jeff, you have better wording than I can on this, but getting the word out that, boy, if we can get these parents to drop those kids off, just with all the other moving parts out here, how helpful that would be, or something. I think the more we can get that out there and just let people know that we're in this together, that you know, could be helpful.
And what's the earliest time the kids can be dropped? You know what I mean? Like, and making that be well known. I mean, what's the earliest that kids can be dropped off?
7:45, I think is kind of the time. No. Yep. And I think for some families, I think that will help. But my only caution would be I don't want to rely on parents to have to bring their kids to school. If a parent gets sick, then what are we going to do with the kids?
Well, or if bus routes had to be staggered, but if parents wanted to bring their kids. But
Yes,
if
that's,
if their drop-off time
Yeah.
could be adjusted to work, maybe parents would like to drop off their kids, but you know, the 7:45 to 8 or whatever time window doesn't work as well. But
they
if
can bring
there's-
them earlier. Well,
or later,
yeah.
or, you know, if
Yeah.
they could be part of the later,
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think we have options with it, which is good. But I think as far as the transportation, I think we should plan on organizing our routes and scheduling it with the idea that all the kids on that route will be on the bus and plan accordingly. So even if the parent says, yeah, I'll bring Susie every day, and all of a sudden something happens and the car blows up or something, we're still going by there. She can still get on the bus. We're not going to miss her. You know, so I don't think, as much as I'd like to get around having multiple routes and stuff, I think we just have to think about it a little bit more and just make sure that that we're not leaving anyone out if something happens and we can't rely on parents to get them here.
I think about that too, like personal experience. I can bring them to school quite easily, but my day, 8-hour day, I work till 4:30, so then to pick them up is not as easy.
You know. And it would be helpful maybe if a parent says, yeah, I plan on doing it. We might put that student or those kids in that family on a certain route based on, most days we're not going to have to worry about them on there, but if they do get on it, they'll be on this route at this time, so that we can kind of keep a handle on the numbers and the schedules. And I am looking at, and I'll be talking more with Brent in doing some school age before and after school care. And I'm also looking at any of our staff that don't have childcare, if we are at liberty or able to provide some kind of programming here, even though we're not a licensed daycare, kind of like we did with essential workers. So I'm hoping if we have some staff members that have a young child under 2, that we might be able to provide some kind of childcare to meet their needs. Not sure exactly how that's going to work, because even with the 2 new daycare programs coming into the building, I know of 1 staff member, maybe 2, that it's still an issue for them because they didn't get in, and so that's a concern, and I'm not sure what kind of leeway we'll have on what we can and cannot provide. So, but school age kids, I think we can provide something earlier in the day if we have a group of parents that need to drop them off earlier, and also later after school. Might have to be a fee-based, yeah, might be a fee-based thing to pay for someone to do that, but we are looking into that. But I'm still also looking at what we can and cannot do with some of our staff members that have young babies that can't get into a daycare program, especially with the border being closed down. So one of the things on our list to try to figure out here.
Anything else before we conclude the working session? All right. So adjourn the working session at 7:06 and move on to the regular meeting. I'll call that to order at 7:06. Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Looking for a motion and a second to approve the agenda. I'll make a motion. Robin? I'll second. Second by Lynn. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Ellis? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Trask? Aye. Sonstergaard? Aye. Lyon?
Aye.
Bertram?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, the addition of the appointments of Nyla O'Connell for elementary teacher.
Yes, and that's a 0.57 FTE at this time.
Motion by Johnson.
I'll second. Second by Sonstergaard. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Ellis? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Trask? Aye. Sondergaard,
Aye.
Lyon,
Aye.
Bertram.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, there are no board presenters?
Nope.
No written communications? No old business? So on to new business. Looking for a motion in a second to approve the contract with Phil, I don't know how to say that. Phil Photography?
I don't know.
For the 2020-2021 school year.
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Second
second.
by Lyon.
We got a motion by Bertram and a second by Lyon.
Muted. Unmute.
Any discussion? Call for a vote. Ellis. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Trask. Aye. Sondergaard.
Aye.
Lyon.
Aye.
Bertram.
Aye.
We're looking for a motion and a second to approve the resolution for the 2020-2021 membership in the MSHSL.
Motion by Lyon.
Second by Johnson.
Okay. Lyon and Johnson. Any discussion? Okay. Call for a vote. Ellis. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Trask. Aye. Sondergaard.
Aye.
Lyon.
Aye.
Bertram.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, looking for a motion to approve the daycare lease agreement with Harley Poppets.
I'll make that motion.
Lynn?
I'll second.
Robin? Any discussion? Call for a vote. Ellis?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Trask? Aye. Sondergaard?
Aye.
Lyon?
Aye.
Bertram?
Aye.
Looking for a motion to approve the daycare lease agreement with Taylor Mulberg.
Motion by Lyon.
I'll second that.
Lyon, second by Ellis. Any discussion? Okay, call for a vote. Ellis. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Trask. Aye. Sondergaard.
Aye.
Lyon.
Aye.
Bertram.
Aye.
Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve the Dakota Fire Protection Contract for sprinkler inspection.
Motion by Johnson.
Second by Lyon.
Any discussion?
Were you pleased with the bids? I mean, is it in the ballpark of what we were paying before?
That would be a better question for Seth. Right off the top of my head, I'm not
Okay.
Seth, are
recalling.
you still on here?
Yeah, I am. So I'm not sure what it was in the past. It was actually done through Jeff Bowers. I'm not sure how he was involved in it, but I did check a different couple places. Vikings was another one who has done it in the past, and these guys outbid them by almost 800.
Any other discussion? All right, call for a vote. Ellis? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Trask? Aye. Sonstagard? Aye. Lyon?
Aye.
Bertram?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Looking for a motion to approve the land lease agreement with Douglas McLeod.
Motion by Lyon.
I'll second that. Second by Ellis. Any discussion?
Does the, just, oh, go ahead, Jeff, because you're probably going to ask the same thing I am. Go ahead.
Yeah, what was it? I failed to know what that is exactly. So what did we come up with on that lease?
$50 a year.
$50, wasn't it?
Yeah. But in
My
the,
question was going to be where there was discussion about the movement of rocks and changing of terrain, that kind of thing. And that's so that he can benefit and put some alfalfa in there, not that the school is demanding he improve the land, correct?
Correct. Yep. Most of that wordage was taken straight from the previous contract holder from that was written up between the school and him.
Okay.
and it does save the school money for not mowing.
We don't have to mow it, so
Yeah.
that's worth quite a bit right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, just the labor and the savings on the wear and tear on the equipment is just monstrous.
okay. Anything else? Now I'll call for a vote. Ellis. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Trask. Aye. Sonstagard. Aye. Lyon.
Aye.
Bertram.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, we're looking for a motion to approve the wage increase for lifeguards.
Motion by Johnson.
Second by Lyon.
Discussion.
I have a question. Why is the student rate less than the adult rate? Do they have different responsibilities?
I believe so.
Okay.
That's a question I'd have to ask Lisa.
Okay, I just wanted to check on that.
I think there has to be an adult there even if there's a student one there, and they have to be a certain age.
Lisa was on the.
Was she?
Maybe she could answer that either.
Yes,
There she, there.
the question was why the student rate is less than the adult. That is right, because we have to have an adult on staff, on deck.
Perfect. Good question.
Any other questions? Discussion? I'll call for a vote. Ellis. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Trask. Aye. Sonstagard. Aye. Lyon.
Aye.
Bertram.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, looking for a motion to approve the coach's contract to include pro rata compensation in the event of cancellation or suspension of activities.
I'll make the,
Go ahead, Jeff.
Bertram will make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
second by Ellis. Any discussion on that?
I'm under the understanding that there is a responsibility being assumed for some legwork, phone work, whatever, which is why the original 25% or the bottom line 25%, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I mean, maybe in the form of delivering food or something of that nature, or is it specifically related to the coaching?
I think the first priority would be geared more for the student athletes in that sport and maintaining their engagement with that. But it certainly could not be, doesn't have to be limited. If there's a junior high coach that we need food to deliver and they're okay with that, I think it's going to be, we have to trust each other to fulfill some of these needs and be flexible. But I think anything that people are willing to do that's reasonable, I think we can look at that. But for sure, first top priority would be to kind of keep the kids engaged in the activity. You know, sooner or later we'll get back to having sports, and we don't want to lose those kids. We want to keep them engaged and participating. So I think that would be kind of the first goal. And you know, so but other things certainly. I think last spring we had a few coaches come in and go through some equipment rooms and do some cleaning and deep looking at their inventory and stuff. So so that is an option to add those other things as well.
And it will kind of depend on how long it goes.
How long? Yeah, there's so many variables. I mean, it's just, you know, kind of have to go with the flow, but the expectation is if they're going to get compensated part of their stipend, that we would expect something in return that's comparable as far as their time commitment and stuff like that. So.
Anything else on that?
Well, we need to talk about that being included in that coach's handbook, some language about
Yep.
that.
Yep.
I'll call for a vote. Ellis. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Trask. Aye. Sunstcard. Aye. Lyon.
Aye.
Bertram.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any other business? We'll just wait to hear updates from you, Jeff, on.
Yes, I will. I am actually going to be kind of on vacation Thursday, although I will be tuning into the governor and I got a couple other commissioner meetings to go to. But I will be out of town. Depending on what he says, you might be able to stick your ear out the door and hear me yell, but we'll see what happens. But I will keep you updated and get back on being more consistent with the weekly board updates and try to keep you posted on where we're at with the planning and stuff like that. Yep. And also reminder of filing dates coming up in August for some of the board members.
What date is that, Jeff? Do you know off the top of your head?
I was trying to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head. I will certainly get a hold of you and anyone else that's up, send emails with the dates and stuff. I want to say like August 15th comes into mind, but I could be wrong. Just like August 8th is not when Ellers is coming, it's August 4th. So I probably shouldn't be just making up dates at a public board meeting. The 15th is a Saturday. So usually it's right around there, but I will for sure get that out to everyone so we know what the filing dates are.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then I will adjourn the meeting at 7:23.
I think this was as close to a flawless board meeting on Zoom that we've had since last March.
We have certainly gotten a lot better at it.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
You
Thank
say,
you. I'll give you a call tomorrow. I got some questions for you.
All right. Take care.